You need to be able to read these and figure them out and do some kind of a sketch. So I'm assuming that you've kind of read this and you know that you're on the Ferris wheel. Here is your starting point on the Ferris wheel. You don't know where you're at, but after 6 seconds, you're going to reach the top that's 40 feet above the ground. And the wheel makes a revolution every 20 seconds. We're going to use that. And the wheel's radius is 32 feet. Okay, so this is 32 feet. Up here at the top is 40 feet, so hopefully you can figure out that there's 8 feet down here. So when I am drawing, and let's draw in black, my graph here, this would represent the ground. This is 0. So I'm going to draw another line above here. This represents 8 feet. That is how low the graph goes. And here is supposed to be a nice straight line. That's 40 feet. That's how high the wheel goes. Now, my wheel starts someplace and it hits the top after 6 seconds. So that is the point 6, 40. After that, it doesn't give us any more, but I know it will come down and hit the low point and come back up and come back down. Now, this low point, we don't know how much time it takes, but I know it hits it at 8 feet. The second time it hits the top point here, I know that it's hitting that 40 feet also. But now that's where this 20-second comes in. Between 6 and this next point, 20 seconds occurs. So this is at the point 26. That also helps me. 20 seconds is a full cycle, so I know 10 seconds is half of the wave or half of the cycle. So this is occurring at 16 seconds. Once you have that, everything else kind of falls into place. I know that there is some middle line here in between these two. So how am I going to find that middle line? I'm going to take the 40 plus the 8, and I'm going to divide it by 2. 48 divided by 2 is 24. Guess what? I know some of my components already to this equation. My A value, haven't figured that one out yet. My B value, I know that the period is 20 seconds, but that means that my 2 pi divided by 20 is going to give me pi over 10. Guess what? That's my B value. My C value is where I start. It is a positive 6. And my D value, we just said, was 48 divided by 2, or 24. So the last thing that I really need to do is find my amplitude. Since this is 24 and this is 40, do you see that that would span 16? And from 24 down to 8, that would span 16. So my amplitude is 16, and it starts up here high, so there's no flip to it. So writing my equation, y equals 6, let's get the pen back on, 16 cosine of my b value is pi over 10. Now, this deals with time, so instead of the theta I did time, subtract 6 and add 24. And on your test, once you have this equation, I might ask you, what's the prediction at time equals 7? So you could plug in a 7. Or time equals 0, plug in your 0. So you need to make sure you know how to manipulate it. Okay, so the next one, we're dealing with a spring. And again, I've assumed you've read it. So here there is a curly spring with some kind of a weight hooked onto it, and it bounces down and it bounces back up. And it wants us to read and figure some things out. So when it hits 0.7 seconds, it hits its high point of 25. Its next low point is 5 centimeters at 3 seconds. So when you're drawing this thing out, you need to recognize there's a floor. The floor is 0. The spring never hits the floor. The lowest the spring hits is 5 centimeters off of the floor, and the highest that the spring hits is 25 centimeters above the floor. So that's the region where we're going to graph it. So it starts out, it says the stopwatch reads 0.7 seconds when it reaches its first high point of 25. So right there is its high point. It's going to bounce down and come back up and bounce down. And this bounce here is at 3 seconds, and it is 5 feet from the floor. We've got all of the info that we need now to write this out, and I'm just going to move this page down a little bit so we could figure out or write out some things that we need. I'm going to need my A value, I'm going to need my B value, I'm going to need my C value. Oh, I already know that. It's positive 0.7, and I'm going to need my D value. Okay, so let's attack the D value first. D value is the middle line here. You went up 25, you went down to 5, and I'm going to divide that by 2. That gives me 15. 15 is my D value. So then, since I know this is 15 now, and it goes up to 25, I can see this is 10, and it goes down to 5, I can see this is 10. My A value is 10, and it starts up, so it's positive. So the only thing left for me to find is the B value. Well, I know that in 2.3 seconds, it does half of a wave. So in another 2.3 seconds, it would do another half of the wave, which means that my period is 4.6. That means my B value is 2 pi divided by 4.6. And here's where we get into some math things. Are decimals allowed in fractions? No. So what are we going to do? We're going to multiply each by top and bottom by 10. And I'm going to get 20 pi over 46, which now I can reduce at least to 10 pi over 23. That's my B value. So my equation, y equals 10, the cosine of 10 pi over 23, t subtract, that's a t, subtract 0.7 and then add on 15 behind it. Okay, one last problem to go, and then we're done. Okay, so we need to switch pages. And notice all the answers are down here on the bottom. This is just supposed to help you figure it out. Again, I assume that you've read it. I'm highlighting some things. At 4 seconds, we see that she reaches a point 14 feet from the fence. And at 7 seconds, she is 4 feet from the fence. So, what does my picture look like? My highest line is 14 feet from the fence. When they're swinging, the closest they come to the fence is 4 feet. So this line right here represents the fence, and everything is measured off the fence, so this is 0. Okay, so they're swinging back and forth. the first point that she reaches after 4 seconds is the top of here. So 4, and she's at 14. Then she swings and she hits the bottom point and comes back up. And she hits the bottom at 7 seconds, and she's 4 feet from the fence. That's all the info I need to be able to solve this. So when we are trying to find our A's, our B's, our C's, our D's. So A, B, C. Oh, C I already know. It's 4. And my D value, that's usually the one I go after next. The D value is the line that cuts this in half. So my top is 14, my bottom is 4, and I'm going to divide that by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. My D value is 9. So now that I know that this is 9, I didn't write it nice, and I'm going up to 14, that spans 5 units, and I'm going down to 4, that spans 5 units. My A value is 5. No flip because it actually started on the up. So the last thing that I need to deal with is the period. And the period goes from 4 to 7. That 3 seconds is half of the wave. So now I know to finish the wave, it would be another 3 seconds. So my period equals 6. So 2 pi divided by 6, which gives me pi over 3, is my B value. So now my equation would be y equals 5 cosine of pi over 3. Parenthesis, use the t, subtract the 4 since it was a positive 4, and add on 9. I hope this helps. And again, remember, you guys need to be able to draw and interpret these things without my help. This finishes up the review.